Hi guys, KevLar here. Today we're going to be looking at the recommended PC specs for the Sons of Forest. So, as we all know, the Sons of Forest is due for release very soon. Actually, now it's going to be early access, but it's still being released on the 23rd of Feb. Exciting times. And with that, they've released the system requirements for PC. They got the minimum and recommended specs, so we're going to be going through these. I'm not going to get too techie into it, just going to explain what some of them mean and help you work out where your PC sits in the range. Really, we're going to focus on the three main components: the processor, memory and graphics card. The rest of it doesn't really change, so you got the Windows, DirectX version 11, storage space and SSD. So first of all, what does the minimum and recommended system requirements really mean? So I would say the minimum system requirements means you need this setup to be able to play this game at 720 to 1080p resolution, low to medium settings to get 30 to 60 FPS. And then recommended system requirements, I would say this is the system setup you need to be able to play this game at 1080p to 2K at 60 FPS on the higher graphics settings. So looking at the memory, first of all, as it's the easiest one to look at, 12 gigs of RAM for the minimum requirements and 16 gigs of RAM for the recommended. This doesn't surprise me at all, because nowadays any less than 12 really, you're struggling in any modern game. The industry standard, getting a gaming PC, building your own gaming PC, is always go for 16 or above now. So 16 I'd say is the standard amount of RAM people go for a gaming PC. Then looking at the graphics cards, so the minimum specs, we've got the Nvidia GTX 1060 or the RX 570. Then for the recommended, we've got the GTX 1080 Ti or the RX 5700 XT. Now this was higher than I was expecting, to be honest. The 1080 Ti, although yes it's a few generations old, it was a beast of a card back in its day, and I'd say it's still quite a good performing card. And the best way to really understand what this means and where your graphics card sits within those ranges is on the Tech Power Up website. They've got a great tool here for all graphics cards where you can select your graphics card and see where it fits in its relative performance compared to all the other graphics cards. So we put in the 1080 Ti here, so that's down at 100%, and then we'll also see the 5700 XT is around the same area. So obviously if you've got a card around this area or above, then you're spot on for the recommended specs. Anything lower than the 1080 Ti, all the way down to where we see the 1060, which is here, and the RX 570 should be around here as well somewhere. There you go. So really anything between those, you're good for the minimum specs and up. So obviously if you had something in between these, so let's pick a fairly popular one, so maybe a 1070 or a 1660 Super, I'd say you're in between the minimum and recommended. So you'll probably get quite a good smooth gaming performance on medium settings. So yeah, without getting too technical, just use this website, Tech Power Up, have a look at the relative performance GPU page, put in your graphics card, see where it sits on this list, and then you'll see whereabout it is in the range between the 1080 Ti recommended and the 1060. One more thing I want to say about the graphics card that's quite interesting is if you take a look at Steam, they always do a hardware and software survey, and the 1060, so the graphics card in the minimum specs, is still up there. It's the second most popular graphics card by all Steam users. I mean, the percentages you can see are very close, so there's not a lot in it, but it shows there are a lot of people out there still using a 1060, so good news for you, you'll be able to play this game on low to medium settings. Okay, back to the specs. Now the last thing we want to look at is the processors. So the processor for the minimum specs is either an Intel i5-8400 or a Ryzen 3 3300X. And then the recommended i7-8700K or a Ryzen 5 3600X. Now without getting too technical on the amount of cores and threads and things like that on the CPUs, again let's just go to another website. Now there wasn't such a clear website as there was for the GPUs, but if we come to Tom's Hardware, we'll pick up this graph here. Right, so if we find the CPUs on here, so if we go down to the Ryzen 3 300X, which is here, and the i5-8400, which is a bit further down the list here, so they were the minimum. So anything around here for the minimum, If you're below that, you might struggle a little bit, and if we move on up, they've got the recommended, which isn't actually a big jump. So I'd say the CPU doesn't make a huge difference, so there's not a huge jump between the minimum and the recommended CPUs there. So we've got the Ryzen 5 3600X there and the i7 8700. Anything around this ballpark you'll be fine, anything above you'll be more than fine for the higher settings. One last thing to mention on the system requirements is an additional note about the SSD preferred. So that's your storage drive. If you've got an old HDD, your game might struggle on that. So SSD is preferred. Again, most people nowadays don't have the old HDDs. If they do, probably use it more for storing things rather than having your favourite games on there. But worth noting, if you do have one, you might struggle if you don't have an SSD. Anyway, that's it for today. Hope you found that useful. Roll on the 23rd of February when the game is released, and let's hope your PC is up to scratch. Thanks for watching. Please do give us a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.